subscribe, and ring the bell. Support the channel. Stay strong.
Hey guys, Paul here. We're back with episode 7 of Repairing the Manosphere. I am pleased as punch to be here. We're going to be talking to Hannah Wallen in just a few minutes. First, I'm going to do a little presentation and a bit of an experiment. I hear from guys all the time how much they miss the monologues. I miss writing them and doing them, but for 8 and 10 minute segments, it's an awful lot of work. So I thought I'd try something here tonight. I've prepared a script for this that I've written to go with the graphic images. I really enjoy the contemporaneous talking that I do with you guys, and I certainly enjoy the conversations I have with my guests. But one of the pitfalls of that is that you end up invariably forgetting to say a lot of things that you would like to say. So I'm going to try a script tonight. I'm hoping you guys will give me your feedback about that in the comments. Let me know you like it, you don't like it, you want to go for something different. Let me know in the comments. Your input matters, and you're shaping this program. We're going to be talking a lot about romance tonight, and I'm going to start with this graphic. This is based on a piece of work that Peter Wright did, where he talked about the circular logic fallacy in the manosphere, and I think also in society in general, about what we observe in the behavior of men and women, particularly in regard to romance and to the power play that happens between the sexes. But it roughly starts out, as you'll see here, is that we're going to ground zero with male simping, and ultimately the cultural narcissism that it fosters, the status-seeking behavior in women, and how men observe this and react to it. And often, and I think this is particularly the case in the manosphere, how they misattribute this to a biogenetic predisposition toward unilateral hypergamy in women. The historical evidence says none of that is true. The historical evidence says that hypergamy has been a two-way street for as long as human beings have existed, until, of course, the romantic ethic got into the picture and things changed. So before we get into these six sessions, I want to frame this about what it's really about. This is not simply a discussion of romance, hypergamy, female narcissism, or the latest dating market complaint, and it's not an excuse for men to condemn women while continuing to reward the very behavior they claim to oppose. This is about the romantic ethic, the cultural programming that teaches men to pursue, prove, provide, protect, rescue, sacrifice, and seek validation through women. That last part's real important. It tells men that female approval is a measure of male worth, and that male suffering becomes noble when it happens in service to women. That programming creates a loop. Men pedestalize women, culture reinforces the pedestal, entitlement grows. That entitlement expresses itself through status seeking. Men, especially the manosphere content creators, observe the result, call it hypergamy, and use that explanation to justify more male performance, more competition, and more female-centered living. In other words, men help create the problem, misname the result, and then keep feeding the system that diminishes them. The manosphere calls that behavior red pill when it's actually blue pill on steroids. The point here is not to deny biology or pretend women do not have male preferences. The point is to separate natural preference from culturally manufactured narcissism, and to ask whether men are using hypergamy to understand women or to excuse their continued loyalty to female approval system. These 6 sections walk through that cycle step by step: male simping, cultural narcissism, status-seeking behavior, the observed pattern, misattribution to hypergamy, and the circular logic that keeps the whole thing alive. The goal is simple: Expose the romantic ethic, stop worshiping the outcome, stop misnaming the cause, and stop participating in your own subordination. So with that, let's go ahead and go to section 1. And it is not moving. Of course. We tested this earlier. It worked just fine, and I have no idea. But we'll just go through these sections anyway. You can use this graphic that you're looking at now, which I'm going to explain. The other graphics were just basically a reinforcement of what you're seeing up there now. So section 1 is male simping. It identifies the opening move in the circular logic fallacy. Male simping. In the image, the man kneels before the woman, offering flowers, gifts, attention, admiration, and implied resources. She is elevated, adorned, and treated as the prize. He is supplicant. She is sovereign. Before we get to female narcissism, status seeking, or the mislabeling of that behavior as evolved hypergamy, we first have to examine the male behavior that helps manufacture the problem. In the Repairing the Manosphere framework, this is where the romantic ethic does its damage. Men are taught that female approval measures male worth. They are taught to pursue, flatter, protect, provide, impress, and validate. A woman's attention becomes something to be earned through performance, sacrifice, and usefulness. This is not merely men being kind. It's men placing women above themselves as moral, sexual, and social authorities. The man in section 1 is not approaching a woman as an equal. He is negotiating from beneath her, offering status, money, protection, emotional validation, and deference in exchange for approval. That is the essence of simping. The man lowers himself in the hope that a woman will raise him by choosing him. That creates a distorted incentive structure. When women are repeatedly rewarded for beauty, attention-seeking, entitlement, emotional volatility, sexual selectivity, or simple presence, some will begin to treat the reward as evidence of intrinsic superiority. The pedestal becomes proof. The simping man says, in effect, "You are above me," and the woman is invited to believe him. The image is not arguing that women are narcissistic by nature. It argues that a culture of male deference can train narcissism into women by constantly rewarding them for occupying an inflated position. Male simping becomes the soil in which female narcissism grows. This also exposes a failure inside parts of the manosphere. Many men complain about women's entitlement while continuing to feed it. They condemn female narcissism but still chase, flatter, pedestalize, and reward the behavior they claim to oppose. Then, when women respond to those incentives by seeking higher status men, greater validation, and more leverage, the behavior is misclassified as natural hypergamy rather than a culture-driven outcome men helped create. So section 1 is not just a criticism of women, it's a criticism of men who refuse to examine their own role in the system. The simping man is not merely a victim of female nature. He is a participant in his own demotion. The first step in breaking the loop is for men to stop offering unearned deference. No pedestal, no worship, no performance for approval, no treating female attention as a verdict on male value. A man cannot repair himself while continuing to reward the system that diminishes him. Now we take a look at part 2 here, cultural narcissism fostered. Section 2 shows what happens after enough men kneel, flatter, provide, chase, and validate. The woman does not merely receive attention, she begins to interpret that attention as proof of her own elevated status. In the image, the woman is crowned, looking into the mirror, surrounded by messages like, "I deserve the best," "I'm special," "My value is high." This is a psychological result of a culture that tells women they are prizes while training men to compete for the privilege of serving them. This is not innate female greatness being recognized. It is culturally manufactured narcissism being reinforced. From the Repairing the Manosphere perspective, this section shows that the transition from male simping to female the section shows the transition from male simping to female entitlement. When men offer unearned deference, women are encouraged to believe they have earned it simply by existing. The pedestal becomes internalized. The crown is no longer treated as something men placed on her head. She comes to believe it is hers by birthright. That is where at least the concept of acquired situational narcissism becomes useful. The issue is not that every woman begins as a narcissist. The issue is that repeated exposure to praise, attention, sexual leverage, romantic pursuit, institutional protection, and male utility can create narcissistic traits. A woman learns that her feelings matter more, her preferences deserve priority, and her desires outrank the man expected to serve them. The culture amplifies this constantly. Advertising tells her she's a queen. Popular music tells her she deserves the best. Feminism reframes criticism as oppression. Therapy culture turns discomfort into trauma. Dating apps display endless male availability. Social media converts her face and body into a marketplace of validation. Chivalric men then confirm the illusion with their wallets, attention, compliments, and labor. The result is not confidence. Healthy confidence is grounded in competence, character, discipline, and reciprocity. Section 2 is about something else, a self-image inflated by constant external reward and by being shielded from accountability. A confident woman does not need men beneath her. A narcissistically conditioned woman does. This is where the circular logic begins to form. Men inflate women through simping. Women behave as though the inflated status is real. They expect more, demand more, filter men more harshly, and view ordinary men as beneath them. Then the manosphere looks at the result and says, see, this is female nature. It's hypergamy. But before calling it evolved hypergamy, look at the culture that manufactured the entitlement, the men who rewarded it, the institutions that protected it, and the ideology that renamed narcissism as empowerment. The woman in the mirror is not just admiring herself. She is seeing a reflection created by male worship and cultural flattery. The tragedy is that many men then mistake that reflection for biological truth. Breaking the cycle requires men to stop feeding the mirror. No more unearned praise, no more pedestalizing, no more treating female attention as a scarce treasure, no more calling a culturally inflated ego hypergamy simply because it appears in mate selection. Section 2 shows the manufactured crown. The task for men is to stop polishing it. And now we'll move on to Section 3, status-seeking behavior. This shows that the next step in the loop, once female narcissism is fostered, it expresses itself through status-seeking behavior. In the image, the woman turns toward the high-status man. He is powerful, polished, socially elevated, and symbolically useful. He is not merely a potential mate. He is a mirror. His status reflects importance back to her and confirms the inflated self-concept produced in Section 2. This is where the manosphere often begins to misread the pattern. Men observe women gravitating toward high-status men and immediately label it hypergamy. But not all status seeking is the same. Some mate selection may be rooted in evolved reproductive strategy. Some of what men are seeing is narcissistic self-enhancement. A woman selecting for competence, stability, discipline, protection, or proven life capacity is one thing. A woman pursuing status because she sees a high-value man as an accessory to her self-image is another. One is connected to practical survival, family formation, and long-term fitness. The other is connected to ego, validation, and social display. The narcissistically conditioned woman does not simply ask, "Is this man good for me?" or "Can this man build a life with me?" She asked, often without saying it openly, "What does being chosen by this man say about me?" His money, fame, looks, influence, social circle, or dominance become evidence of her own supposed value. This is why male simping in Section 1 matters. If enough men tell a woman she is exceptional and enough men offer attention, gifts, labor, and validation without requiring character, reciprocity, or loyalty, she may come to believe ordinary men are beneath her. The attention of average men becomes background noise. The only attention that still elevates her is attention from men who outrank the men who already worship her. That is not necessarily evolved hypergamy. It's probably escalation, narcissistic inflation looking for a stronger dose. In Repairing the Manosphere terms, men often see the outcome, women chasing status, without examining the conditions that trained women to feel entitled to it. They call it nature when it may be culture. They call it biology when it may be a social disease men help subsidize. This does not remove female agency. A woman who has been worshipped can still choose humility, reciprocity, and character over display. But when culture rewards vanity and men keep feeding it, many will follow that incentive. The status-seeking woman is not necessarily looking for love. She may be looking for proof that she's special, proof that she deserves the best, proof that the mirror in Section 2 was telling the truth. This stage is destructive because it turns false elevation into mate selection behavior that humiliates the man who helped create it. The ordinary man who simped, flattered, and validated now watches the woman he elevated choose men above him. Then he concludes, women are naturally hypergamous without recognizing that his deference helped build the pedestal she is standing on. Section 3 is not merely about women choosing high-status men, it's about status becoming narcissistic supply. A woman choosing a competent man is not the problem. A woman using men as mirrors for her inflated self-image is. On to Section 4, the observed pattern outcome. Section 4 is where circular logic becomes dangerous. Men observe a real pattern, but misread what they're seeing. The image shows a man watching women selectively pair with a high-status man. He sees attraction to money, fame, dominance, social proof, access, and prestige. He sees ordinary men ignored. He sees women who have been flattered, pedestalized, and culturally protected now demanding men above their apparent level. From that observation, he concludes this is hypergamy. The observation may be accurate, while the explanation may be wrong. Yes, women may pursue higher status men. Yes, the dating marketplace may show women filtering men through status, resources, image, and social rank. But that does not automatically prove the behavior is an evolved reproductive norm in its pure form. It's quite likely the visible result of the earlier stages in this cycle that I'm describing. By Section 4, we are no longer looking at the beginning of the process. We're looking at the product. First, men pedestalize women, then culture fosters narcissism, then that narcissism expresses itself as status seeking. Only after that do men observe the pattern and declare it biological destiny. This is where many men stop thinking too soon. Female nature becomes an easy answer that avoids deeper analysis. It lets men ignore their own participation in the system. It lets them ignore the romantic ethic, male simping, chivalric deference, gynocentric institutions, social media validation, and the culture-wide worship of women. It also collapses two very different things into one category. One thing is functional mate selection. A woman preferring a competent, stable, resourceful, disciplined man who can build a family and protect a household may be acting with practical and biologically intelligible frameworks. Another thing is narcissistic status seeking. That is when women pursue a high status man not because he's a good mate, father, husband, or life partner, but because his status enhances her self-image. He becomes a trophy, a signal, a validation source, and a way to confirm the inflated self-concept built in sections 1 and 2. Section 4 warns men not to treat those as the same thing. If a woman wants a man of competence and character, that's not necessarily pathological. If she wants a man whose status allows her to feel superior to other women and contemptuous toward ordinary men, that is something else entirely. Calling both hypergamy muddies the water. A wrong diagnosis produces wrong strategy. If men decide that all female status seeking is hardwired hypergamy, they may conclude that nothing can be changed except their own rank in the hierarchy. So they chase status harder, compete more desperately, and continue feeding the same entitlement they claim to oppose. In other words, they return to simping under a different name. Instead of kneeling with flowers, they kneel with money, with muscles, life branding, social clout, and performance masculinity. They still make female approval the measure of male success. They still treat being chosen as the verdict of their worth. The questions here are simple. What exactly am I observing? Is this evolved mate preference or culturally inflated entitlement? Is this women selecting for competence or using a man's status as narcissistic supply? Does nature produce this behavior, or did years of male deference and social reward train her into it? Section 4 is not saying that men are imagining the pattern. The pattern is real. The mistaken is assuming the pattern explains itself. A man who misreads the outcome will keep reinforcing the cause. Now, moving on to section 5 here, misattribution, say that fast 3 times, to hypergamy. Section 5 is where the circular logic turns an observed behavior into supposedly a final explanation. Men see women seeking status. They see women filtering men by wealth, rank, looks, social proof, confidence, dominance, and access. They see ordinary men treated as invisible while high-status men receive disproportionate attention. Then they reach for a familiar explanation, which of course is hypergamy. The problem is that hypergamy can become a lazy answer. It can be a way of saying, this is just what women are, without asking how much of the behavior has been trained, rewarded, inflated, and protected. It takes the end result of a process and treats it as the beginning. This section is not saying that female mate preference has no biological component. It most certainly does. Women often select for competence, resources, strength, status, and social rank. Those patterns are real enough. The mistake is in treating every expression of female status seeking as a pure evolutionary strategy, untouched by culture, ideology, male behavior, or institutional incentives. A woman seeking a capable man because he's stable, competent, protective, disciplined, and able to build a life is one thing. A woman demanding exceptional men because she has been taught to view herself as inherently superior is something else. The first may be practical mate selection. The second is absolutely narcissistic entitlement expressing itself through mate selection. Too many men collapse these two things into one category and call it all hypergamy. That misattribution hides the role of male simping. If the problem is simply female nature, men do not have to examine how they pedestalize women, reward entitlement, subsidize vanity, and train women to expect unearned deference. They can complain about the behavior they continue feeding. It also hides gynocentric culture, a society that tells women they're queens, victims, prizes, moral authorities, and perpetual children will produce predictable behavior. Social media amplifies it. Dating apps quantify it. Therapy culture excuses it. Popular culture celebrates it. Family law protects it. Chivalric men reward it. Then, when the behavior appears in the dating market, men call it biology and stop thinking. Mislabeling culturally induced narcissism as hypergamy gives the pathology scientific camouflage. It makes it sound inevitable, ancient, fixed, and beyond challenge. It tells men their only options are to compete harder, climb higher, earn more, become more dominant, and make themselves more attractive to the same women whose entitlement they helped create. The man thinks he has escaped simping, but he has only converted it into performance. Instead of flowers and compliments, he offers status displays. Instead of begging for attention, he builds an identity around becoming high value. In female terms, instead of deconstructing the romantic ethic, he upgrades his compliance with it. He is still letting women define the scoreboard. That is why this section matters for repairing the manosphere. It forces men to ask whether their theories are liberating them or giving them more sophisticated vocabulary for the same old servitude. The point is not to throw away the concept of hypergamy. The point is to use it more carefully. Hypergamy may explain part of the picture, but it does not explain everything. When the concept is used to excuse female entitlement, ignore male simping, or treat culturally amplified narcissism as destiny, it becomes part of the problem. A man who misnames the problem cannot solve it. If he mistakes the product of gynocentric conditioning for immutable female nature, he will keep adapting himself to the sickness instead of withdrawing his participation from it. The task is not to deny what women do. The task is to understand what trained them to do it, who rewards it, who benefits from it, and why so many men keep calling the result nature when it may be the predictable outcome of female worship and male self-abandonment. Section 6, finally, the circular logic fallacy. Section 6 identifies this final trap, the circular logic that keeps men from understanding their own role in the system. The cycle begins with male simping. Men pedestalize women, often offer unearned praise, compete for attention, provide validation, and treat female approval as a measure of male worth. That behavior helps foster female narcissism. The narcissism then expresses itself through status seeking. Men observe the status seeking, call it hypergamy. Then, because they believe hypergamy is fixed in female nature, they go back to competing harder for female approval. The loop is complete. This is the circular logic fallacy. Men create or amplify a condition, observe the result, misname it as an immutable nature, and use that misnamed result to justify continuing the behavior that created it. In plain terms, the man says, women chase status because they're hypergamous. Then he concludes, therefore, I must raise my status to get women. So he works harder, performs harder, builds himself around female selection, and keeps treating women as the judges of male value. He thinks he has become red-pilled, but he is still obeying the romantic ethic under a new vocabulary. That exposes how parts of the manosphere can criticize female entitlement while still feeding the conditions that produce it. The man who thinks he is escaping simping may simply be changing costumes. He stops bringing flowers and starts bringing money, muscles, status displays, dominance, posturing, lifestyle branding, and high-value man performance. But if this underlying motive is still to be chosen by women, the center hasn't changed. Female approval remains the throne. He is still kneeling, only now he's just doing it with a little bit better posture. This is where a lot of men get stuck. They see through feminism, family courts, dating culture, and the empty promises of modern romance, but they do not see through their own need to be validated by women. They still want a woman, or women generally, to certify that they've arrived. That is not liberation. It's a more sophisticated form of captivity. The circular logic also protects women from accountability. If every expression of female entitlement is dismissed as just hypergamy, women are relieved of moral responsibility. Vanity, narcissism, contempt, opportunism, and status addiction are treated as natural law rather than the choices shaped by culture, incentives, and character. Men then adapt to those choices instead of withdrawing reward from them. That's not an analysis, it's a surrender disguised as theory. A healthier framework asks better questions. Did male deference help produce this behavior? Did culture inflate female self-regard? Did institutions protect women from the consequences of entitlement? Did men confuse narcissistic status seeking with evolved mate preference? And most importantly, am I using hypergamy to understand women or to excuse my continued loyalty to the female approval system? That last question turns the mirror back on men. Section 6 does not deny biology. It challenges the lazy habit of treating every female demand, every inflated standard, and every act of narcissistic status seeking as nature expressing itself. Some of it may be nature. Some of it is obviously culture. Some men may be rewarding women for behaving badly, and some men may be refusing to give up the belief that being chosen by a woman is the final proof of their worth. That is the circular trap. Men worship women, women internalize the worship, women demand higher status validation, men call it hypergamy, and then men worship harder in the form of status competition. Breaking the trap requires men to stop using theory as an excuse for compliance. The answer is not to deny female nature. The answer is to stop feeding female narcissism, stop pedestalizing, stop rewarding entitlement, stop treating female attention as a scarce treasure, stop making women the judges of male value, and stop pretending that becoming more attractive to women is the same thing as becoming free. A man who understands this stops asking, how do I win inside the system? He starts asking why I'm still playing a game built on my own subordination. That is where the loop breaks. And that is the conclusion of the presentation. And with that, I'm going to bring on Hannah Wallen, who I'm very happy to have here from the Honey Badger. She is a political commentator with a primary focus on men's issues and the harmful impact of the feminist gender war on human and civil rights. And she added here, when I asked her for her bio, that she doesn't even limit that bit to men. She says feminists have effed up, although she used a different word. Feminists have effed up everything for both sexes. Most people know Hannah from her work in the Honey Badger Brigade, and I'm pleased to have Brian bring her on right now. Welcome, Hannah.
Hello.
How are you? Did you survive the beating?
You probably couldn't see me then. I'm sitting there nodding along the whole time going, yeah. There is one thing I will add to it, and that
Sure.
is what I would call daddy's little girl syndrome. And it starts when you're a little kid. Now, I was fortunate I didn't have daddy's little girl syndrome from my dad, but I did have it from my grandpa. So I still saw it. I mean, I could do no wrong in my grandpa's eyes until I was probably 17 or 18 years old, and had my own political opinions, and they didn't match his. Um, but my dad was different. Like, he played pitch and catch with me when we were kids, and didn't pull any punches with, you throw like a girl, you got to change that. This is something that you have to focus on. You can make this work the way you want it to. And if it's not working, it's because you didn't do it right. Things girls don't usually put up with hearing, because all their lives, their fathers will treat them just a little more delicately, just a little more, to a lot more sometimes, than they treat their sons. And my dad had a way that he talked about maturity that was different than a lot of people teach boys. A lot of people teach boys man up, toughen up, and so on. My dad taught signs of strength. And what he was usually talking about was mindfulness and accountability. So he wouldn't say real men don't do this, real men don't do that. He would say strong men don't slam doors, they shut them. But he would also say the same things to me. And it was about controlling yourself in order to control your environment in the ways that are appropriate for you to control it. And that really made a difference in my ability to understand everything that you talked about, with regard to relationships and dating, and what to look for permanently in a partner, in somebody that you're going to stay with. And it's not just the first date or the second date, but you're looking at, gosh, I might want to settle down with this person. Not things that reflect my image on everybody else, but things that allow us to build a life together, because it's you and your partner, not necessarily against the world, but weathering all of the hardships of the world together. And you have to be able to rely on each other, and you have to have the same values, or mostly the same values, and very close to the same interests, if you're going to be able to do that. And if all you're worried about is, does this guy make me look good? Am I special because this guy likes me? Am I this? Am I that? And me, he can't depend on you. And you're going to fall apart. And I think that's why, between, what the research says, between 69 and 90% of divorces are initiated by women, because they get to a point where, something's hard, and their husband can't rely on them, so he doesn't. And then they feel slighted, or they feel left to do the parts that they don't know are, that they don't know the rest is happening. And so they think they're doing all the work. And if he can't rely on her, he certainly can't tell her what he's dealing with. So if there's a hardship she doesn't know about, then she doesn't know to shore up this side of what's going on, because he's got this side of what's going on. All she sees is that her side is piling up. She doesn't see what's happening on his side. And so
Well,
she
yeah,
thinks
I
he's
mean,
doing
it's
all the work.
pretty typical that,
Yeah.
what men's experience in the relationship life is pretty much invisible to most women anyway, to begin with. I was thinking
Yep.
while you were talking about two things. One, I was thinking how similar that my wife's father sounded to your father, raised them with accountability, with hard work, with expectation. And it's, so I don't think it's an accident that I ended up being compatible with her. The other thing is, I would refer people to my YouTube channel. Hannah talked about the little Daddy's Little Girl, Daddy's Little Princess. I did a talk several years ago called Daddy's Little Nightmare. And it digs right into that. Men create, and in this script I read tonight, and in a lot of what I'm talking about in this podcast, that's pretty much the focus. I mean, this is not about sitting around bitching about women. It's about what are men creating? And you have fathers out there, nobody's good enough for my little girl. She will never have a bruise on her. She will never suffer through anything. She will never want for anything. And I'm going to be her, like, and it's creepy when you look at the nature of this relationship. I'm just going to coddle her and be her savior until some other guy who might measure up a little bit comes along and takes over my job, coddling and taking care of her. I've got a few questions for you here, Hannah. Actually, I've got several, and we'll try to get through all of them, or hopefully most of them. I'm just curious, one, and I ask this of every guest: how did you end up here? How did you end up?
You know how long-winded I am.
And we don't want the War and Peace version,
right?
but just a summary of how did you end up in a joint like this?
Yeah, the story itself is a very long story, and I would encourage people, the part that's the meat of it, I would encourage people to look up a story called 7 Years in Hell on the A Voice for Men website by me, that is about my friend's experience with 7 years of restraining order abuse, vexatious litigation, malicious prosecution by his ex-wife, who was trying to regain custody of their child after she exposed the child to a guy who was violent. And this was one of those relationships where the violence went two ways. She would throw things at him. She would, attack him and everything. And then when he hit back, then, he would get into trouble.
Then it was on.
But, right.
Yeah.
But this guy, the other thing she was a neglectful mom. And so when you neglect your children, the only way that they can get your attention is by acting out. And so the little girl was acting out, and second husband beat her black and blue. And so, second wife took pictures. She's a professional photographer, and I don't know how she looked at that little girl without crying the whole time, because this kid, it's hard sometimes for me to not cry when I talk about what happened, and the kid's an adult now. But she took pictures, so they took him to Child Protective Services. They got protective custody, and I guess it was a couple of weeks before the first false allegation started, and it got worse, several times in a row, and then it started getting ridiculous. And by the end of it, I had gone in because I was looking for, why is this happening? I've seen this happen a bunch of other times with a bunch of other guys in small ways and big ways. There was a guy I grew up with that went through 20 years of this. And his case, I didn't have the documentation to write about it. But this case, we had 8 reams of paperwork from this case by the time we were done. 4 reams, 8 inches of paperwork, 4 2-inch binders. And so I started looking into the Violence Against Women Act, and I started realizing, not only did it pass back in the day when I thought, oh, this will never pass, this is so stupid, but it had been re-upped every couple of years.
You seriously underestimated our politicians.
Yeah, at the time that all of that was happening, there were other news stories that there's always a circus, right? That distracts from what's really going on. So the year that law was introduced and there was a little discussion going on about it and everything was also the year of the, I can't think of the name of it. The chick that it was really, this was horrible. She decided she had been raped and she cut off her husband's penis, and the media made a
talking about Lorena Bobbitt.
Yes, Lorena Bobbitt. And it was
a man would remember that name, right? Longer than a woman would.
Well, the dumb thing is, I remember it usually when I'm telling the next part of what I usually talk about with regard to her, which was about a year later, I was taking anatomy and physiology at university in Lima, and the lab that made the take apart pieces of human anatomy was Bobbitt Laboratories, and we all thought that was hilarious. But in any case, that dominated the news. There were a couple of other stories. There were the two skaters that one of them busted the other one's kneecap. Like, that kind of stuff is dominating the news. And so I lost track of that law because I thought there's no way. We already have a law. It passed in 1984, right? The Family Violence Prevention and Services Act. There were already shelters. They could serve anybody that was abused. There was no need to pass a federal domestic violence law because we had one and it was doing what it was supposed to do. Maybe increase funding, maybe not. There were other things that could have been done, but it didn't need to be gendered. And
Right.
they did. But they didn't just gender it. They did a whole bunch of other sneaky things. And among those things was entrenching the Duluth model of response to domestic violence, which it doesn't pathologize it in a common sense way. It treats it as a patriarchal dominance method that all men collectively use against all women collectively, instead of an individual failure in in understanding how to handle conflict. And
I think at some point we're going to have to do a podcast on the Duluth model.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of questions here. I want to.
That's what got me into Reddit. Just to be quick, that's what got me into Reddit. I started trying to inform people of that.
Yep.
That fact.
I think that's how a lot of us get there. We uncover something we haven't seen our whole lives, and we start talking about it, and people get pissed off. That's sort of like the pattern of behavior. Anyway, we're going to do some debunking of romance here, some picking it apart. Maybe there's something good in romance. I don't know. It's one of the reasons I wanted to include a female into this discussion, because romance works both ways. So to start with, when you hear the phrase "the romantic ethic," what does that mean to you?
So that phrase kind of threw me for a loop because it's one I'd never heard before, and so I kind of looked online and peeked to see what it's supposed to mean, and it didn't sound like it was referring to what we're going to talk about. But if somebody threw that at me and I didn't have someplace to research, and I couldn't look it up and say,
somebody just did.
Yeah. My thing is, romance used to mean something, right? It used to be both ways. It was romantic when a woman took care of a man, and it was romantic. She was being romantic when she made his welfare the focus of her life because she loved him. And it was romantic when he made her welfare the focus of his life because he loved her, and she was doing the same for him. But that's been twisted now into only he has to do it, and it's an obligation, not something he does because he loves her. And it's no longer intentional, thoughtful, consistent on the woman's part. It's just me. What's he doing to win me? He constantly has to win me again and again and again. And if he won me yesterday, that doesn't mean I'm his today, even if we're married, which is dumb, because why would you marry somebody in that circumstance? The older I got, the more I realized, after a whole childhood of seeing stories where the romance did go both ways, that the women around me aren't like that. And it kind of got disgusting to me. And the thing that really made it happen was my allergies. I'm allergic to flowers. I don't wear you don't see very much jewelry. I got my wedding ring and that's about it. And it's because that bothers me too. So a guy can't just come along and give me a lot of gifts. A guy can't shower me with gifts. And that never bothered me. I'm not always comfortable being given gifts. And so that made things easy for me. So I can tell a guy, well, you can't really do that. We can just hang out a lot together and be close. Well, as soon as other gals found that out about me, they got mad. oh, you're a scab, you're lowering the value, and blah blah blah. Like, I don't know how else to put it except that I'm crossing the strike line. I'm a scab, like I said, that's lowering the value of pussy. And it's a crude way to put it, but it's pretty much the way that I got treated by other girls. And it made it worse that I don't wear makeup because I'm allergic to that too.
Sorry about the allergies.
Well,
let me approach this from a different angle. You described women taking care of men out of love and nurturing them and providing that. I think I would push back on that because I don't see that as romance. Romance is something that comes with a set of rules. And this sprung out of the courtly love tradition,
that
which
makes sense.
Assumed from the beginning that the woman was elevated in moral and physical worth above men.
See, I haven't seen anything from women like that where women treat men that way. That only goes one way.
And that is sort of my point, that it is a one-way street, and it has been from the beginning, from its inception. It seems to me that what you're describing is more akin to companionate love, or what the Greeks might call storge, but definitely love. Right. And so part of the question for me is romance love, and I've had to conclude it's not. It's a one-way street of proving your worth for men that is you're always being constantly reevaluated. You're only as good as your last great act, and then you have to prove yourself over again. That model doesn't sound like love. But I want to go on with this. Do you think that romance itself is a natural human impulse? Is it a cultural script or some mixture of both?
What I've always thought of as romance is, but when you add those rules to it, no, I don't think it is. I don't think that it's natural for people to treat love as if it's that transactional, and especially not if it's a one-way transaction, right? What I see as love is a dedication to the other person, and you have your companionship, and you enjoy your companionship, you enjoy your intimacy, but the thing that locks that companionship and that intimacy into place is, and I think this is why the Bible uses the term yoked, like you are not unequally yoked, is that you are going through life as a team. And
Right.
you're as much of a team as a team of oxen are. If one person pulls ahead of the other person, the way that oxen were yoked, it's around their neck. So you're going to choke your partner if you try to do that, especially as a woman, because your partner, is the stronger of the two. And if he has to, not only does he have to deal with the actual yoke of life around his neck, but he has to do it while he's restraining himself from stepping forward. So you're choking him physically and you're choking him psychologically. And I cannot imagine living like that. I think I would rather die.
Well, in that light, do you think romance is mostly sold to women as fantasy and men as a duty?
Yeah, I think it's sold to women as fantasy, and then they put it on, right, like an outfit, and they wear it, and they treat it like, I don't know. It's not just an obligation after that in their eyes. It's, I look bad if you don't do this. It's, you treat a man like he's shaming you if he's not romancing. So it's an expectation. It's not just his obligation. It's her entitlement. And
so boon to women and burden to men.
Yes, but it's also like my job, I'm a caregiver at my job, and I have obligations, but I take care of people who have intellectual disabilities, and a lot of times they're not thinking about my obligations. they're thinking about how they feel in the moment or what they're doing in the moment, what the environment they're in is in the moment, as best they can. A lot of it's very childlike, right? So they don't act out if I'm late doing something that I should do at a particular time, like a med pass. If they had a sense of entitlement to it, they might be, stomping their feet a little bit. They might be pounding the table. So obligation is its own little thing here, but that entitlement makes it worse because women never quite view men as meeting their obligation, even if they do, right?
Yeah,
Particularly
even if they
romance.
overdo it, it's still not
Right,
enough.
right. And so that entitlement leads to emotional abuse. And so
Okay.
where romance is sold to women as a fantasy and then they wear it as an entitlement, it becomes the weapon they're using of emotional abuse.
And it becomes
And
a humiliation ritual for men.
right. And it's a beating. It's not just an obligation. If that makes sense.
Do you think that men are taught to confuse love with sacrifice?
Yeah. Yeah, very much so.
How do we teach them that?
There's a lot of different ways. I think part of it is our stories. And if you look at the old stories, sacrifice was a way to gain something or a way to save something. It was, you had a purpose for it that was concrete and valuable in and of itself, not valuable because you placed a value on it, but your village is going to wash away in the flood, or your whole family is going to die, or people are going to starve because this didn't get done or that didn't get done. The dragon is going to come out of the cave and burn the village. But with romance, what you have is she's not going to be happy. It doesn't seem very big by comparison, when you look at more modern stories, the sacrifice is often for something that isn't that valuable.
Right.
Now, that's not counting stories that come out of Japan, because Japan still tells old school stories. I like that. This is why women hate men who watch anime, by the way, because anime still does the old school. The dragon's
Yep.
going to burn the village down. This is worth the sacrifice, versus she's not going to be happy. You have to give up your job and move to another state so that she can be a model for 3 years before she hits the wall, or some other stupid story like that. It's just not the same. And I think a lot of guys are raised in this environment where they aren't given the tools they need to tell the difference.
The sort of if mama ain't happy, nobody's happy ethic,
Yeah.
I think stems from romance. And it's basically a threat narrative. It's basically what it's telling everybody. And when they say nobody's happy, they're talking about the children in a family. They're talking about extended family. They're talking about a husband anywhere within an earshot. If she is displeased, everybody else is going to pay for it. Do you think that is Japanese culture exempt from that?
No.
Is this,
I wish I could say that it was.
okay.
Feminism has infected Japan, and there's one really solid way you can tell. Right, they have female-only train cars. Right, they have
Okay.
female-only train cars because women will make allegations of groping under crowded circumstances where everybody is pressed up against everybody else, and you don't even know what just happened, whether that was somebody's briefcase or somebody's hand, whether that individual did that on purpose or got pushed into you when the train was bouncing around. And at the other end of it, Japanese men are very gynocentric.
Yep.
Japan has gynocentrism. It's everywhere in the world. There isn't a place that I have met people from or spoken to people from that does not have gynocentrism. I wish there was, but, and I can even say that about the Middle East. It's gynocentric. And
Absolutely. I mean, we learned this
so,
from way back.
yeah.
We've had writers from Iran and other countries write on A Voice for Men about the law there, the customs, highly gynocentric. And I was thinking how natural and wonderful that is. I don't know if that was a briefcase or the back of somebody's hand that touched my ass, but I think I need a new train car.
Well, and it's not just that. You can completely destroy a Japanese man by accusing him of groping. Right? He can lose his job, he can lose his family, he can lose his reputation, he can become unemployable. So it's a much bigger deal there than it is here.
It's almost like Welcome to America.
There are men there who have killed themselves over accusations that small.
And which happens I don't know about suicide over accusations that small in the West, but certainly there's been a lot of men take their own lives after being accused of sexual crimes, falsely accused of sexual crimes. And of course, it's only men dying, so nobody cares. How does romantic storytelling make male disposability appear normal? I know that's a short question with a long answer, but I wanted to throw that one.
Well, for one thing, it does treat the idea of sacrifice as something that men do primarily for women, right? If you consider the history of men building civilization, the number one reason why men engage in sacrifice of their own convenience, of their health, their safety, their lives, is for their community, their country, the whole, and it's because they value those things, not because they want necessarily glory and prestige. Those are things that are used as selling points when they're recruiting guys into the military and things like that. But when you look at men in history who have done great and terrible things in war, or who have sacrificed their health to build great buildings or great structures, to make great works of art and so on, it is to give to the world something that will last after they're gone, and that will enhance people's freedom, enhance people's comfort, enhance people's safety, even entertainment. Great musicians that have stayed up late into the night working on something, great artists that have stayed up late into the night working on something so much that they got sick and died. And this isn't for women. This isn't for a woman. The idea of a muse is nice, and women can be inspiration if we're kind and loving and caring, and we give men something to be inspired by. But we're certainly not the end-all, be-all of inspiration. And unfortunately, romantic writing treats it as though women are. And it's really bad for both sexes because, again, I've said this on HBR Talk quite a bit. When you take away accountability from women, and I say take away like you're taking a treat away for a reason, you're taking away the primary tool for success in the human toolbox. If you can't own your agency and you can't own the consequences of your choices and recognize that you control everything that you do and everything that you affect, you can't succeed at anything. So with romance, when romance takes accountability off of women for equal participation in the relationship, for having some humility, and for elevating the man that they're with and making sure he understands that you see him as great, you take away her ability to succeed at relationships.
And boy, howdy, have we ever done that? I was thinking as you were talking, Hannah, about men's motivation for creating great art, for building civilization, and the fact that so much of it was oriented around contribution to society, about advancing the human race, about doing something significant and leaving a mark that left other people better off. It reminded me precisely of what the expectations used to be of marriage. When people came together, it was for the betterment of the family, for the society around them, for political reasons, for business reasons, but it was about building and expanding. And women were absolutely expected to show up with their big girl panties on, ready to contribute to creating a family and enhancing his work in the community, how he contributed to the world around him. And she was considered essential in doing that.
Yeah.
And then the romantic ethic, we made marriage about women's feelings and almost nothing else. It's like, this isn't about bettering the world or bettering your community or enhancing your family. It's about whether or not you feel validated and special enough all the time. And I think that absolutely, it has literally infantilized women to the point that we live in a culture now that most women are not suitable for a healthy pair bond at all. They're beyond it. They have no concept of what it means to show up as though that there is expectation of them to contribute in a meaningful way. They just sort of show up and say, well, I look good. Here I am. Take care of me. This is what marriage is about. Take care of me. It's a crazy ethic, but I do think this comes from romance. I don't think it was fostered by henpecked husbands. They just contributed to it. In traditional romantic narratives, the man proves himself, sacrifices, protects, provides, and persists. What does the woman usually have to prove?
Pretty much nothing, in my opinion. And it was traditional romance from the standpoint of there being that set of rules, and from the standpoint of it being, just about the feelings and everything. If you look at stories that go along the lines of traditional romance, you see a woman who is, well, usually we'll start with the fact that nothing she does is deliberate. This is probably the biggest reason why I hate those kind of stories. No offense to the writers. I'm sure I know at least one. But actually I know at least two. I work with at least two.
I sense you're being very careful right now.
But and they're perfectly smart, right? But I hate stories where women are these butterflies floating around, floating in the wind, and bad things happen to them, and oh, woe is me, and then a man comes along and rescues them, right? My idea of a romance is the Conan the Barbarian series. I read those when I was a kid, as many as I could get my hands on. I think probably about 10 different books. They were my brother's, of course, and he passed them on to another guy. And at first I was really mad, and then I was like, but he'll read, and that'll get him to read. So then I was okay with it, with losing those, because I can always replace them. But getting that guy to read was a big deal. But in any case, I just think it destroys literature to a degree when you take a character and you make that character the protagonist, but then the protagonist has no agency, and everything is about pleasing the protagonist.
Isn't that how we ended up with romance novels that are basically glorified bestiality, where they hook up with minotaurs and other things like that? And I think that's the sort of the quintessential way to express that she's not really doing any of this. This is all something that is being acted upon with her, and she might as well have some great orgasms while she reads. While she's hooking up with whatever beast. But they're actually putting fictional beasts on covers with women now for romance novels. It's absolutely insane. But I think this is where this leads. Do women benefit from men believing in romance more than men benefit? I mean, I think I know the answer.
I'm going to tell you that nobody benefits from this, all right? But women feel like they've benefited. And I think they feel like they've benefited more than men feel like they've benefited. And the reason for that is, they're the ones whose ego is getting boosted. Men see romance at best as a tool for keeping her happy so that she doesn't do horrible things to him, like the things that brought me into the men's rights movement. Whereas a narcissist, which in our society, in our modern society, I would say that probably about 95% of women have some level of narcissism, maybe 100%. And y'all can see that I'm female, so I'm not excluding myself from that, right? And it is because we constantly are bombarded with messages about how narcissistic we should be. And so if you're not putting in effort to stop and think, am I being narcissistic right now? Is this really all about me? Is the way I feel or think about this really that important? And not doing that homework in every situation. Every woman will have some narcissistic moments because we're always told that the women in the room are the most important people in the room, right? So what do men have to tell them that romance should feel good? Well, the most they can get out of it is if they gamify it and they get a little bit of dopamine release from successfully performing the skills involved, and a little sense of peace that they've done everything right, they've followed all the rules, and they should get the result. And unfortunately, that part turns out to be a lie all too often. So women, while women don't benefit, they may think they do, and they may feel like they do quite a bit. I think men don't share that illusion as much.
And doesn't it ultimately harm women too? I mean, infantilization is a crippling condition. But I think about this, and I think you're right. I was trying to recall while you were talking if I've ever known, and of course, there's going to be exceptions, but I'm just using anecdotal stuff from my own life. I've never known a woman who was not offended at being held accountable for her behavior. And I'm saying that in all earnestness. I mean, believe me, I wish it were different than that. The world was different in a lot of ways. That's part of what we're doing here. But I've literally never known a woman in my life who didn't get offended at even the most minor amount of accountability over insignificant stuff that guys will just say, "Oh yeah, my bad," and you're on.
You move on.
You move on like it was never there. It's like, what are you saying to me? It's absolutely amazing, and I think this is poor mental health in action. We have crippled women psychologically with this to the point that they react like children to any kind of a truly adult expectations. And I'm not paying lip service to this. I think it's a horrific way to socialize people. Absolutely horrible to do this to women. And I'm going to go back and I'll get flack from it in some places. That's okay. I go back to men. Where are they getting these messages that they're beyond reproach? Who is it that's telling them that their poo doesn't stink? It's not other women. Other women don't like each other very much, and they're more likely to criticize each other. But it's men doing this.
Yeah, although we do have to hold mothers accountable for that too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I have a story.
They're infantilized mother passing the tradition down.
Yeah. I was maybe 8 or 10 years old, we had this walnut tree in our backyard. And because it grew in a space that was in between two houses that were fairly close together, it got really tall and skinny, had really small branches. And I was a tree climber. I was an everything climber. And Mom had to tell me, don't climb that tree. The branches will break. It won't hold you. Well, I thought I knew better than my mom. I can hold on to things. I can hold on to the trunk. I can climb this tree. So I went, and I went most of the way up to the top. I was way up there, right? And I was doing fine. And a branch broke. And I held on and I didn't fall. But the walnuts on the tree fell. And it ricocheted off of a lower branch and busted the neighbor's bathroom window. And, most parents, most Gen X kids grew up getting spanked or stood in the corner, grounded. No, Mom made me go over with her to his house, and we knocked on his door, and I had to tell him that I broke his window because I wasn't supposed to be up in the tree, and I went up there anyway. And then I had to find out how much it was going to cost to fix the window. And then when my chores were done for the day, I had to do extra chores for minimum wage until I earned enough money to pay him back for that window. And I even got to hear my mom tell him no when he said, oh, my insurance will cover it. No, she has to do this. It's the only way she'll learn. And she was right. And I was so mad. I was mad.
Boy, weren't you lucky, though?
Yeah, but it felt so good to go next door with that envelope with that money in it and give it to him. I'm sorry. Here's the money. And this will pay for your window.
If that's something I could pound, and we're always trying to be fair and balanced here. Men are more accountable. I talked about men just saying my bad and the guys moving on. I have to exclude the area of their simping. Though, if you try to hold a man to account for simping, he starts acting like a woman. And arguing like a woman, shifting goalposts, gaslighting, getting insulting, doing the sign language, the whole thing. When you challenge men about their gynocentrism, they literally become women in the way they argue. They will argue physics, politics, mathematics, the broader culture with you using facts and figures all day long. But if you point out, hey, man, why are you kissing that girl's butt? She's treating you horribly. They suddenly argue like women. It's absolutely amazing to watch that. But again, I reiterate, this is not doing any favors to women. We are crippling them. They could accomplish so much more with their lives if we didn't raise them to be eternal children. But that's exactly what we're doing. We're doing it with fathers that create daddy's little nightmare, mothers that do the same thing, and men that simp creates women who fail. And so in that, I think that was sort of like the birthplace of feminism.
Might also be why the
because
majority of women in America are on some kind of SSRI or other anti-anxiety medication because they can't figure out how to be happy. You get happiness from maturity. You don't get happiness from people doing things for you or having everything you want or being entertained. Or you get happiness because you get to a point in your life where you learn that happiness is something you make in yourself, and it happens from maturity. It happens from taking control of your life and recognizing what you can control and doing things about it. And being
I love that
community.
And the fact is, and I speak about this to men all the time who complain about double standards. Well, we always hold men to account. We don't hold women to account, as though it's unfair to hold men to account. It is fair to hold men to account. That's why men are more generally stable and more content in life than women are. And so men get this accountability. They get more independence from it if they're not too gynocentric. And on the other side of that coin, you have women. The net result for them is SSRIs and government paychecks.
Yeah.
The guys are getting the better deal on this by far.
And you notice, you can tell even young men who don't have their full maturity yet, that they just entered manhood, or they haven't gotten there yet. Maybe they're teenagers when they're in high school. You can tell them, clean your room as part of your advice for life, and they will listen to it. They'll take it to heart and they'll try it and see if that it helps them. You tell women, clean your room, and you get, I'm not sloppy. Why are you saying I'm sloppy? How dare you? Do you think all women are sloppy? Misogynist. And
cleaning,
then
you
they're
think women are
upset.
supposed to clean, right?
You think what? Yeah, this is why are you telling
Misogynist.
women to do? Women need to clean their room,
Yeah.
right? Stop calling men misogynists. Look at what problems you have in your life. Stop holding other people responsible for fixing it, and fix it yourself and gain the satisfaction from fixing it yourself. It's not satisfying to have people do things for you. It's satisfying to accomplish them.
Not satisfying, but it does feed narcissism.
Yeah.
If you've got
That it
servants,
does.
that fits the model. Do you think it's possible for men and women to have healthy love after men deconstruct the romantic ethic, which seems to be happening now? We're watching men walk away from relationship life. It's on full display. There's no doubt about it. They're leaving the dating apps. They're not showing up
Yeah.
at singles events. 63% of men 18 to 25 aren't dating, aren't bothering with it. And so I think the beginning process of sort of, unhooking from the romantic ethic is already in full force. Do you think women are going to be able to learn anything from it? Or will they just sit and stew in where did all the good men go that they actually ran off?
I think it's going to be a lot like the process of healing a wound that's so deep it has to receive stitches. We're going to have to go through all of the itching and all of the it hurts every time you move, all of the pain and suffering before we get to the reward. But I don't think it's possible for human relationships to be healthy while the romantic script is still in play. I don't think it's possible for that to be the primary means that people have relationships and relationships be healthy at all. I think most of the relationships that I have seen be successful, including my own, don't rely on that. Like we'll do things for each other for the sake of doing things for each other, but we have to be able to rely on each other. And both of us would have been in deep shit if we couldn't. And I think a lot of relationships that like mine have lasted for a long time are like that. My parents' relationship was like that. My grandparents' relationship was like that on my mom's side of the family. On my dad's side of the family, the relationship failed, and it wasn't like that. And you see this I'm trying to figure out how to word this. As long as women think that they can rely, I'm just going to call it heroin. Okay. It's not, romance is the heroin of human relationships. As long as people can get more heroin, if they're already addicted, it's very hard for them to just decide they're not going to be an addict anymore, or at least they're not going to be a user anymore, right? Women are going to continue to pine for that heroin as long as they have that narcissistic ego.
And I think the only difference, I think you're absolutely right. I think the only difference is that heroin addicts have to figure out how to get the money to supply their own habit. This is a heroin habit that the woman is the one doing the shooting up and the guy is the one running out and buying the drugs.
So as soon as that drug becomes unavailable, women are going to go through withdrawal. And if you've ever been around an addict that's going through withdrawal, it's hard, right? They're not, the suffering that withdrawal causes can make an addict very mean. And it doesn't matter whether they intend to be mean to you or not. It feels the same way, even when you know it's not intentional. Having been around an unfortunately large number for somebody who doesn't work in the field. It's very painful to deal with an addict that's in withdrawal, and it's very painful to deal with an addict that doesn't want to stay on the wagon, right? That just doesn't, they just want to stay in the addiction. So men are going to go through a lot of pain dealing with women's bullshit, right? When men,
well, they're used to that.
yeah, this is going to be worse. It's going to get worse. It's going to get as much worse as an addict becomes during the hardest part of the cycle of not curing addiction, but escaping from underneath it, where now it's beside you and maybe you're still carrying it, but you're not giving into it. And I think that the generations of women that are alive today are only going to be able to get to that level, at least the majority of them. And it won't be until we have a generation of women who never experienced daddy's little monster syndrome, daddy's little princess syndrome, who never experienced a fully gynocentric society, who never experienced romance before, that you can eliminate that addiction. As long as it exists, there's going to be addicts.
I think that's fair enough. And I'd like to add sort of a little bit of my own answer to that question, and going back to the question, is it possible for men and women to have healthy love after men deconstruct the romantic ethic? I think it's generally true that there is no healthy love without getting rid of romance.
Right.
Romance to me is not love. It's absolutely not love. It's subservience. It's feeding somebody's ego. It's a Hollywood fantasy of what love is supposed to be that has no grounding in reality, in actual human pair bonding. And the people that try to maintain that, I see fail all the time. I think I gave Stacey flowers once, 24 years ago. Haven't done it since. And she's there for me. She helps take care of me. I take care of her. We do things for each other constantly. Right. But none of this fawning, none of this. If I had to try to keep up a man's end of a romantic contract for 24 years, I would have hung myself 20 years ago. It's just not possible anymore. And Hannah, I think you're absolutely right. This won't correct until we have a generation of women who don't know what romance is. And guess what? We have a generation of men coming up right now that's going to show them that very thing, that there will be no romance, because these Gen Z guys, they're not playing. They're bringing an unfortunate amount of crazy with them, but the fact is they're not playing the gynocentrism game, and I actually do think that is a good start. What would love look like if it were stripped of performance, entitlement, and gynocentric obligation?
Oh, now see, there's one that I think a lot of people are going to have difficulty with, because I think a lot of people don't know how to describe love. Like, they know how to describe romance as love, right? And they know how to tell you what they've seen in stories. But if I look at it, right, performance, entitlement, and gynocentric obligation were not part of my parents' marriage. They just dealt with life as it came along, and they dealt with it like this, right? It wasn't, I think romance is more like this, and then the woman just starts going off, this way. And my parents, the whole time, anytime that there was something wrong, anytime there was something that needed handled, anytime we were all sick, we went through some really rough times at different points. Both of my parents each saw the other one almost die more than once from illnesses or injuries. And they still, their whole life, went through it like that. And so to me, what I learned from that is that it is a mutual journey. It's not something one person does for the other. Romance is something that one does for the other. It is intertwined dedication, like I showed with my hands. It is companionship, even if not even if it's not in all things that you get involved in and are interested in, it's in all aspects of your life, right? You're not just companions when you're sitting around watching TV. You're companions when one of you has a heart attack, or when one of you almost dies in a car accident. You're companions when one of you is in the hospital and the other one wants to sit in the hospital with you and has to work so that you don't lose your home, so that the one in the hospital can come home to a home and not being kicked out. It's being mutually invested in the family that you make together, whatever shape that family takes, in each other's welfare, in each other's security, in each other's contentment, right? In each other's happiness. And I know a lot of women are going to be like, those are the same thing. They're not. Being protective of each other, right? Not just him protecting her. She needs to protect him too. And it doesn't mean that you have to get out your sword and shield and stand between him and the world. It means when he says, get in the house, because there's a problem and he might be risking himself and you don't want to make it worse. When you're someplace and there's a lot of other men around and one of them offends you, you keep your mouth shut because you don't want to get your husband into a fight. A lot of women don't know that part.
Do not use your mouth, ladies, to write checks that your husband's ass has to cash.
Yes.
That is just,
yes.
That really gets my goat. There is nothing more unbecoming and offensive to me than a smart mouth woman who's provoking people in a social situation because she's got this guy that's going to protect her. Bad. Ladies, I would walk off and leave you to get your ass kicked. No problem.
Yeah. And then there's something else too. If my husband's late getting home from somewhere and I get worried, it's not because I'm worried that he's with another woman. It's because I'm worried that he might have been in a car accident or something else might have happened to him. And because my worry is something like that, if he gets home and he's fine and he just forgot to call me, I'm not mad. I just might ask him next time, just send me a text.
Oh, a little respect.
Don't worry.
Imagine that.
Mad. It's not something to be mad about. I'm entitled to not worry about him. No, I worry about him, but I want him to know I worried about him because then he knows I love him. I don't want him to know I worried about him because he should feel guilty. I want him to know he's cared about. And so if I ask him to make it easier for me, then I should do it in a humble way, not an angry way, because I'm asking him for a favor. And I don't want him to think it's not because I care. I'm asking him because I don't want to be neurotic, which that might be actually in women's nature.
Well, okay,
I don't know a woman who isn't
a
little bit neurotic. I have never met a woman who isn't a little bit neurotic in comparison to men.
Oh boy, we can
not even myself. I'm neurotic too.
We can do another talk on that very subject. That's for sure. I think the other thing I want to point out about this is that, and if there is any women in this audience tonight, I doubt there's very many, but I'd like to pose an idea to women. Look, if your idea of a pair bond is the romantic kind where you have a chivalrous knight that attends to all your needs and makes you happy all the time, please consider you probably need therapy more than you need a relationship, because what you're essentially saying is that your role in a relationship is to act as an anchor tied around a man's neck. That's literally what you're saying when you want romance. You're not do that from anybody. And if we're ever going to help women achieve the kind of status in life that they seem to be looking for out of this world these days, it's going to have to start with growing up first and making sure that you carry your own weight in life, which is not the standard that we have for women now. Do women tend to recognize romance as a power structure, or do they mostly experience just as this is just how love works?
So to start with, I don't think women understand power structures.
Okay. Well, they seem
Wi-
to understand power
Yeah,
as long as it's absolute.
women can understand I can hurt you with this, right? And they'll understand I can benefit from this and I can manipulate this, but they don't always understand the long-term implications. And my conclusions on that have come from working a whole bunch of different jobs. I'm one of those people that I guess you can call me a workaholic. It's probably fair, but I like to try everything. So I've worked in retail. I've worked in as a professional photographer. I've taught. I've been a caregiver in different capacities. Been a baker a little bit. Bunch of different stuff. So I've worked with men and women in a bunch of different environments. And every place I've gone, women will play politics in the workplace. And they'll think of the immediate result they're going to get. I will do these things and people will respond this way. And then I will have this result. And they'll do it over and over, never thinking of the fact that other people are going to notice what they're doing. And eventually they're going to get a reputation from it. Their coworkers won't trust them. They won't be relied upon. People will see them as the troublemaker at work. People won't tell them things. People won't want to be alone with them. People won't want to train them. So they don't understand all of the connections within a power structure. They don't understand the waves that go outward from the center of the power structure. They just understand that if they're at the center of it, they can feel powerful and they can accomplish things in the moment. So that's the first thing. So they see it as a way to manipulate a man, but they don't realize that every time they do it, they're pushing him away. And they don't see that they are deconstructing parts within themselves that they need to have solid and built up and not taken apart and scattered. So they lose their personal accountability. They also lose their empathy, their sympathy, and their compassion. And these things are not interchangeable. They lose the ability to look through his eyes, right? How would I feel if I was treated this way? That's how he feels. They lose the ability to care how he feels, and they lose the ability to want to do something about it, even if they do care. So you have your empathy, your sympathy, and your compassion. If I were to, I don't know, start criticizing my husband's appearance, which didn't get happen because I'm the handsomest guy in the world. But if I were to start doing that, just bitch up a storm, pick something random and say, this is unattractive about you, and I hate it, right? And I about it, right? Then I don't have sympathy for him. Or maybe I care and I'm a bitch about it. And fine, good. Maybe if he feels bad about it, he'll fix it, right? So there's 3 different ways that women hurt men by treating romance that way. He's going to do this for me. He's going to prove himself to me if I just bitch about this thing. It doesn't always take the form of bitching, but you get the picture.
I get the picture. Totally. Life experience and all. You
Sure.
get that picture as a man. I'm going to go to my last question now before we get to any comments that we have. And I'm going to break my own rule to ask this question, because my normal rule is, and I tell men all the time, do not ask women for relationship advice. Don't ask them for advice on men or masculinity. Don't listen to anything women have to say about how you should conduct yourself in terms of pair bonding. But now I'm going to take a moment to be a great big hypocrite and break that rule. And I want to ask you, Hannah Wallen, what do you tell young men who still want families, connection, they want relationships, they're not looking for short-term scores, they're looking for meaningful connections, something they can build a family on, but they've looked at the romantic script and said, you know what, I don't want to do that. So they're in a bit of a quandary there with that. Yep. What advice would you give them?
Your dating pool just got a whole lot smaller. And like, that's the first thing. And
it was small to begin with.
Yeah. It makes me sad to have to talk to guys about this. This is a really hard one to deal with, because I like giving people good news. I don't like giving people bad news, right? There is some things that I can say. There are some that are more neutral news and more just good advice. Like, don't make women the focus of your life is a big one, right? That's probably the primary thing that men need to learn in terms of self-improvement. There's not really a whole lot of in terms of, like, men have optimized themselves over the centuries to the degree that they don't need a lot of work. They're pretty awesome people. Just judging by what we have as a society, like, especially in first world countries, I mean, even just the simplest things that most people don't pay attention to. I go in the bathroom, I poop, and I push a button and the poop magically disappears. Men designed the thing that makes that happen, and I don't have to live in filth. And I can't, once I realized everything in my life is like that, I can't tell you the size of gratitude in that moment for the history of masculinity, right? But men do need to change that one thing. Don't make women the focus of your life. We can do good things. We can be fun. We can be good partners if we have the qualifications. But if you make women the focus of your life, you lose some of your ability to discern between having those qualifications and not having those qualifications. If you think about marriage as not just a romantic connection, you like dump the romance out of it. Like, push that all aside. What's left? Well, it's a business partnership, and it's a bond, and it is a spiritual bond and a psychological bond that is lifelong. You're attaching enough of yourself to another person that if you get ripped apart, the pain from that is going to be unimaginable. So you should be picky, and there's nothing wrong or misogynistic or mean or anything like that about being picky. Women who are telling you, oh, you shouldn't worry about body count, off the table right away. Don't even talk to them. They're not worth your time, right? Women who want to carry a lot of debt before they get into the marriage, not worth your time, right? Women who just don't seem to treat you with as much value and respect as they want from you. And by the way, they don't understand respect either. They're not worth your time either. If she can't recognize you as a human being who has achieved everything that you've achieved, and who has vulnerabilities that she should protect, and who has cares and concerns and interests that she should be aware of, and be judging your relationship potential based on whether or not the two of you share those, then she's not worth your time. And that means that the vast overwhelming majority of women are not worth your time. And women are able to make that judgment very easily. They will tell you right now that the vast overwhelming majority of men are not worth their time. And it's not necessarily misandric for them to say that. There's a lot of people, especially as you get, Gen X was less grown up than the boomer generation in a lot of ways. And the millennial generation, less grown up than Gen X. And the Zoomer generation, less grown up than the millennial generation. Scared of Gen Alpha, because they're going to be the ones taking care of people my age when we end up in nursing homes. So, it's fair.
Yeah, you better have a good plan then.
Yep. I don't plan on retiring, but men should be judging women as harshly as women judge men. And you should be looking for commonalities, not, and beauty goes away. Like, you look at me, all right, I'm 54 in a month, and I'm missing most of the teeth in my upper jaw due to a fun genetic problem. But I've got gray hair. I'm going to start getting wrinkles and so on. I used to model. So beauty fades, right? And it's okay that it fades because personality doesn't, it shouldn't fade. And so that's
No,
what you're
it
looking
should
for.
age like wine.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
It should get better as you go along. Exactly. And it's important to judge a woman's character.
And you
So
know what I found is that, and again, I put the onus back on men for this.
yeah.
You can screen out probably 90+% of unsuitable women by telling them no to something and watching their reaction.
Oh yeah.
If you just did it, guys won't do it because no is verboten. No is not something that comes out of a man's mouth if he wants to be approved of and accepted by a woman. If he's gynocentric and romantic and simpy, he's not going to say no. But
Yeah.
that one simple little trick, no, I'm not doing that.
There's a list of going around, by the way, of places that are bad places to take a woman on a first date. If you want to screen your girl, take her to one of those places. I know one of those is like a walk in a public park. If she can't enjoy doing something with you that costs no money at all, not worth your time.
Absolutely. You can find out a lot about people at Starbucks, by the way. It doesn't need to be a 5-star restaurant.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're running out of time, but we still got to get to comments and questions. And but Brian, do we have any comments you want to bring up?
Yes, we have lots of comments. So I'm going to, let me see. Okay, you guys can hear me okay? All right.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So let's go first. We'll look at the super chats, and they are still coming in too. So got one from JM. Let me see. I gotta scroll. I've been copy pasting a bunch. JMNZZ gave $5, or no, I'm sorry, $50. $50.
Wow, and I know that dude. We go way back, man. This is a guy, one of the OGs from A Voice for Men back in the day. Shout out to you. That's Jared, by the way.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Jared. You rock.
Yeah, appreciate it. And he says for 50, hypergamy, correct spelling censored by YouTube, so he spelled it a different way, would be minimal issue if men didn't subjugate themselves into second-class citizens. The world needs more happy misogynists.
He's making a reference to my first website, The Happy Misogynist. Like I said, we go way back. Thank you so much for the donation and that comment, brother.
It's a deep cut. Then we got another one from Perpetual Procrastinator for $5 Canadian. And they say romantic ethics seems to be a malevolent byproduct from excess of post-industrialized society. Subsistence living is incompatible with luxury beliefs.
Absolutely correct. We didn't see the romantic ethic was introduced into human society 1,000 years ago. It didn't become widespread until after the individualism movement rose after the Industrial Revolution. The guy is absolutely correct. When we could afford to turn women into children, that's just what we did.
When people had time for it, yeah. I was going to say gynocentrism is a lot older, and rich people started indulging in it because they had time. But you didn't see people of my economic status doing it. You know?
No. When you're trying to eke out survival, enough food for a day, you don't think in terms of, nowadays it's a crisis if my chicken tikka masala is 10 minutes late from DoorDash and it's all of a sudden there's an uproar. But life wasn't always this way. Men made our civilization this unbelievably good, and they've kind of screwed themselves in the process, unfortunately.
It's just like women didn't clamor to get into the workplace until men made it safe enough that, very few people die from injuries at work.
Yep. But usually when they do die, it's still
They're
guys.
men.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's because the most dangerous jobs out there, the ones that are the hardest and scariest to do, are usually done by men, not women. I mean, my job's not dangerous, really.
My job's only dangerous in a very passing way, but I've done dangerous work in my life, plenty of it.
We had this-
Anyway, we better get to the next.
Yeah.
We're running long on time here. Let's get with more comments.
Okay, another super chat from the Kosher Clinician for $7.77.
TKC.
Jackpot writes. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Taxation without representation is the motif of the day. Romanticism is mostly extrinsic, and there is a level of intrinsicness, I believe. Zero sum. That was the super.
He's
chat.
always spot on. I got a
Yep.
conversation with him. I've been running behind for a few various reasons. I've actually got 3 additional interviews that I've done that I need to get posted to my channel. TKC's is one of them. It's a good talk. You'll enjoy it.
Okay.
What I would say about that is that taxation is basically theft, and men used to decide how much of that theft they would tolerate based on their relationship to the government. When women stepped into that relationship, they didn't step in with the same history or the same knowledge, the same responsibility, or the same awareness of what that meant. And so they don't have any concept of the wrongness of engaging in that theft for their own purposes. And that's why we're seeing such high taxation now. Women's safety net addiction is what feeds most of it.
Yep. $421 billion annually spent on entitlement spending on women.
Yep.
Think about that.
Safety nets are the most addictive drug and the most ineffective as well. 9 times out of 10, they strangle you.
And men won't put a stop to it because the money's going to women.
Yep.
Their money. But anyway, we could go on that one for a while too. Great comments coming in here.
Yeah. All right. Another one from official Rev Trad gave us $5 super chat and says, assuming this is why no Badger show tonight, we'll listen later. Thanks for being one of my first retweets, Hannah.
Well, mine is tomorrow. So we had news yesterday, and I don't know what we do on Wednesday nights because
I normally
not
just leave with
available.
Allison, but Allison's working on a some kind of essay project, and so she basically said, "Oh, maybe I won't do a show," and it was fine because I had to do this one too, so it's okay.
Well, I'll plug mine then.
By all means.
I had a realization about the accountability gap because I've been talking about the accountability gap for a long time by that name. The men's rights movement has been talking about it since the beginning. They just haven't always used that name. So it's not new ground that I'm breaking or anything like that. It's just I put a name on it. Women like to label things, right? So I realized, because we've had this big argument about whether or not gynocentrism is natural. I don't think it is. I think Storge is natural, but I don't think gynocentrism is natural. But the accountability gap is, and it's based on. Well, you'll have to listen tomorrow. You'll have to come visit Honey Badger Radio tomorrow to find that out.
There's a
But
link
it is
in the
based on an
description.
instinct. Yep.
Okay. That's it for the paid comments, but I do have a bunch of unpaid ones that were coming through while
Let's
you guys were
roll 'em.
talking.
And thank you, sir, for that last one for the gift. Appreciate it.
Yes. Okay. So earlier, this is like in the beginning of the show, Amleva made a comment saying, the sad part is when one's wife decides to become susceptible to the simping she sees around her when her husband isn't giving her that attention. Isn't enough to just not be a simp as an individual. So I guess they're saying that there are other people will simp, other men will simp for women when her man isn't around, and that could also creates a problem too.
One thing I will correct you on. she didn't become susceptible. If she falls for that shit, she was already susceptible. If my husband and I had a disagreement and another man happened to be around when that happened and he took my side, I'd drop it immediately. Like, that would be it. If some guy thought he saw that as an inroad, besides the fact that I'd be pissed off at that guy, and I might tell him off in very colorful terms, that would be the end of the argument. Obviously, my husband is right because some guy's trying to use it against him.
And look, if you can be swayed, if you're a married woman that can be swayed by a simp, what you're telling me is that you have poor character.
Yeah.
That you just have poor character. That's all. If some idiot can come along and say, "Oh, your husband's wrong. He's this," and you find solace in that, it's because you're a child and not an adult. Sorry, but
yeah,
that's the way I call that one.
All right. Another comment. V for Victory 777 says, said earlier, Repairing the Manosphere series is probably one of the best Red Pill series I've ever happened upon. Thanks, Paul. You have helped save my life post-divorce.
Well, man, I'll tell you what, that's a super chat right there. I take that to heart. Thank you. What can I say? I'm humbled.
Right. And on the other side of that, something a little less complimentary, Kel1337 said, why do we still listen to women, let alone overweight women? She doesn't even care about her dental hygiene, but we're going to listen to her tell us what is.
Living proof
That's
that
fine.
will actually let anybody bring their comment up on here. I'm not dignifying that one, but
no,
go ahead,
I
Hannah.
will. So there's a couple of things that you know, the dental hygiene thing he's not right about. I have a genetic condition that has my teeth are literally dying. But the weight problem is my whole fault. Nobody did this to me. I let myself go during a situation where my time got very limited, and the thing that I needed to do during that time was stop eating junk food instead of, taking the time to eat good stuff. Even especially actually, since I didn't have time to exercise. I was in the hospital with my dying mother, and then my dying father, and then my injured husband, like boom, 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 all in a row. And in that moment, I just let go and started eating whatever was convenient. And if I want to be really honest about it, and on, a show where I'm talking to the public, I should be, that's an excuse, right? Because where I was at that time had healthy food available. There was plenty of, there were salads, right? There was tuna, there were cheeseburgers, anything healthier than chips and soda. And so you're right. You can't take every bit of my life advice without questioning it, because like every other person, I do stupid shit sometimes. So everything that I've said to you tonight, you should carefully consider and think about whether it matches up with your sense of ethics and your sense of values. Does it make sense? Is it logical and rational? Or did I just say a bunch of foolish and stupid things? You should do that not because I am a woman, but because you should do that with everybody. And my being a woman shouldn't change that.
Pearls before swine, in my opinion, but we'll roll on to the next one.
You should see the comments on my video about consent. It was when the first sign started showing. So
okay. Let's roll on from this, Brian.
Okay. Joseph Esposito 3499 said, one of the Brad Wilcox did a radio shoe I guess, show on NPR, and he was suggesting fathers to bring their daughters out on dates with their father to teach her to select a servant.
Yeah. Hey, Joe. Joe's a great guy. We don't agree on politics. We're on totally different ends of the spectrum, but I love this guy. Totally honest, a man of integrity, and he calls it like he sees it. Yeah, that does not surprise me that Brad Wilcox would have emotionally incestuous connection to children. Doesn't surprise me at all. He's the guy that's out there insisting men get legally married, that's what'll make them happy. He will not converse with anybody with a different worldview. He's intellectually a coward, and I think intellectually perverted. This stuff is disgusting. Take your daughter on dates. Are you freaking kidding me? Nope, sorry.
You know what my dad did? He gave me a pretty graphic autopsy of his parents' divorce and the aftermath. Like that was pretty much the way that he explained to me how character mattered, and it was really important. Everybody involved, all three parties, and there wasn't a cheating on on the side of like his mother getting together with his stepfather, but there was with his father, and he really didn't pull any punches on that. He wasn't unnecessarily critical. He had good things to say about his father too, and he even had good things to say about his stepfather, even though there weren't very many to find. But he didn't take me out on dates and show me how it was supposed to be done. He flat out said, this is what happens when you fail at marriage. And that's, I think, the most important thing. He did the same thing with cancer and cigarettes, and I don't smoke either. So there you go.
All right. Next comment. Amjiva said, I recently came across the vexatious litigation article when searching for information. I still need to finish reading it.
That one's I don't know if they mean the 7 Years in Hell article or if they mean the first 4 pages of Breaking the Glasses. That one would be breakingtheglasses.blogspot.com. And I started that blog initially before I got together with Allison and Karen and created the three of us created the Honey Badger Brigade. That one was my way of trying to get across to people how to handle the situation, what worked for us in the 7 Years in Hell story. So if you read the 7 Years in Hell story, then go to breakingtheglasses.blogspot.com, skip the entire blog all the way to the beginning, which if on the side, in the sidebar, you should be able to go to the first month that was started and read the very first 4 pages. And it'll tell you about vexatious litigation and malicious prosecution as tactics in divorce, and how to deal with restraining order abuse and stuff like that.
Hannah, if you'll send me a link to that, I'll put it in the description.
I will do that.
Okay. Perpetual Procrastinator said, Afghanistan is not gynocentric.
Believe it or not, it is. They're just not coddling women the same way that women in the United States are coddled. But when the only way for women to control their sexuality is to cover it up, that's still coddling. If you have to put your dessert in a locked box so that you don't eat, that's coddling, right? I got cookies in the kitchen. I didn't have one today. I was going to have one, and then I remembered the bathroom scales, right? Because I'm working on it now after I let it go all that time. That's self-control, which I needed about 5 years ago. And because I'm not being coddled, people can see and criticize that. And it's important for women to be able to take that, right? But if a woman is covered up, if a woman is restricted to the point where she can do no wrong because she literally can do no wrong, she can face no criticism, she cannot grow, she cannot mature, and she doesn't have to think about it. And that's coddling. It may be that it looks mean to people who are accustomed to a lot of freedom, but it's done.
Well, until you look at the lives of men in Afghanistan.
Yeah, yeah. And when you look at the lives of men in Afghanistan, which are about 1,000 times more harsh, you can really see it.
Yes. I mean, that is, I think, one of the biggest fallacies that people have we have a big biased Western disinformation campaign about life in the Middle East. Sorry, guys, it's true. And then you get into certain aspects of life in that region of the world, and you start to understand that the veil that many women wear, that is something a man has to work toward to see on the other side of. If you think that those cultures aren't gynocentric, you're not paying attention to the 9 and 8-year-old boys who got used as human waves in the Iran-Iraq war while the women were protected. They are gynocentric societies. It has a little bit different roots than it does in the West, but it's still practiced. And it's why I think a lot of people mistake. They see a cross-cultural similarity in gynocentrism and say, oh, that's proof it's genetic. No, it's more cultural, but it's there. Afghanistan is a gynocentric country. So is India. So are nearly all of them.
All right. Mr. 0303 on Rumble said, Japan is a shame-based culture. Combine that with gynocentrism and you have quite a problem for men there.
Yeah.
So he's talking about
there is a large degree to that.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's absolutely right. Shout out to the Rumble audience. We don't have a lot of subscribers there, but I want to point out to everybody that there is a link. Eventually, YouTube is probably going to kick me off. I can't even believe I'm still there now, but eventually that'll happen if you want to. But I'm not going to stop no matter what. I have a Rumble channel. There's a link to it there. These videos also go up to my Substack. Link to it there. Phil, if you enjoy Rumble, follow me there. It's Paul_Elam, or there's a link in the description for you.
All right. The Salatine said, society knows they did actual damage to men. The only thing they are able to do is attack men, so they attack men.
Hard to argue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, certainly not going to attack women, right?
When anything goes wring, blame men is usually the default go-to. Yeah.
I jumped into an argument on social media this week where they were basically arguing, are men better or are women better, blah, blah, blah. And the women were just posturing, and one of them really got on a guy's nerves, and he pointed out that with the advent of sex dolls and the work that's being done toward the artificial uterus, you know, he said something to the effect of men are about to make some breakthroughs that will take away the last thing that makes women valuable to a man. And she turned around and said, if you think childbirth is the only thing that's valuable about women, you are the problem. So I retweeted it with a comment asking, what else do women do that is valuable that men can't do? And for the whole first day, I got almost no answers, but a lot of views. I was really surprised by how many people saw that comment, and nobody answered me. And then when the women finally started commenting, the majority of them just bashed men. They didn't have anything to say. One woman bragged about things, but her bragging was just, women are better at men in the following ways, or better than men in the following ways. So there was no, here's why women can be valuable to you. Here's why you should love us. Here's why you should be interested in us. Just a whole bunch of venom. That's all that they had. They had nothing else.
Because there probably isn't an answer to that question that's going to be satisfactory
No.
for anybody. And folks, we're really out of time here. We're going to go ahead and close up. Just a couple of things. One, super thank you for the super chats from people, all the comments, most of them. Really appreciate them. Next week, we're going to have Bradley Grunner here from A Male Space. We're going to be talking about more of this. I think it'll be an interesting discussion. And I also want to give you a heads up on something to look out for in the days ahead. I'm working on something with Peter Wright right now. What we've noticed is that if you take the Joseph Campbell's Hero with a Thousand Faces, this story of the hero departing society and coming back home, and you overlay the basic elements of that story, which is a collection from all cultures across the world. He basically looked at all mythologies and all folklore and put together common elements that we see from societies across the world to formulate this idea of the hero's journey of a guy who departs from the norm and then returns with a boon to society from what he's learned from his initiation and trials. This is a template that overlays perfectly on the red pill journey for men. And I'm not talking about the fake red pill, which is actually blue pill, learn how to attract more women and get social status and things like that. I'm talking about men who are unplugging from gynocentrism, unplugging from society's exploitation of them, and finding their own way through life with a different set of standards. That journey, which more men are taking now, is just like a perfect overlay onto Campbell's hero stories. And we're going to be doing a 3-part series on that. I'm looking forward to getting that done, and I think you'll enjoy it very much. With that, one last thing. Hannah, where can people find your work?
Honey Badger Radio is, we got 2 channels. We've got Badger live streams, and the other channel is actually called Honey Badger Radio.
Okay, and there are links in the description. With that, I want to thank my guest, Hannah Wallen, very much. Producer Brian Martinez, thank you all for showing up. It's been great to have you here. I hope you enjoyed, even if you haven't, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Support the channel. Stay strong.